Why did Jesus say he didn't know the hour of his return if he is fully God? In Matthew 24:36, Jesus says, "But concerning that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only." This can seem puzzling, especially when in John 16:30 the disciples declare, "Now we know that you know all things." So how could Jesus, being God, not know the hour of his return? The answer is found in understanding that during his time on earth, Jesus emptied himself. Philippians 2:5-8. He voluntarily set aside certain aspects of his divine knowledge and power in order to live fully as a human. By doing this, he experienced the same limitations we do while remaining sinless. This was essential for him to be our perfect sacrifice. Jesus chose not to access all of his divine attributes, so he could fully obey the Father and fulfill his role as the suffering servant. It's important to note that after his resurrection, Jesus no longer limited himself in this way. His divine power was fully restored, and he was exalted to the right hand of God.
Jesus didn't know because Jesus is not God. That's why Jesus didn't know. Now, in order for you to accept that Jesus was God, and the reason why that he did not know is because he emptied himself while he was on earth. So therefore, when he was talking to the disciples, he told the disciples that no man knows the time or the hour, that even he does not know, then he is not God. You see, God can never be anything less than itself. God must always be itself. God can never be more than itself. It can never be less than itself. It has to always be total and complete. So to suggest that God can take away parts of himself, can suppress parts of himself, is to say that that is not God. Like, as a human being, you can suppress parts of who you are. You can suppress your shadow self. You can suppress memories. You can suppress tragic things that have happened to you in your life. But if you are God, then all things are within you and all things are you and you are all things. So you can never suppress or delete or take away any aspect of who you are. The all must always be the all at all times. So Jesus, by saying that he does not know the time or the hour, he is not God. So what about how the video talked about Philippians 2:5-8? Philippians 2:5-8 has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation that was being held by Jesus and the apostles. When the apostles said that you are a knower of all things, and Jesus contradicting that by saying that he does not know the time or the hour, Philippians has absolutely nothing to do with it. What Paul was saying in Philippians 2, and it goes all the way through 8, is kind of a succinct message through that part, is that Paul was saying that, look here, you little people in Philippi, you're not acting right. You're acting haughty. You're walking around with your rank and your prestige. You're acting like you're better than other people. And he reminded them that in the Philippians 2:5-8, that the Jesus character, although he came in the fullness or the nature of God, he did not use that to his advantage. So this is not taken away from it. It's just saying he didn't use it to his advantage. It's not saying that he didn't have it. It's saying that he had the nature or form of God, but he didn't use it to his advantage, but instead took the form of a servant. So meaning that although a person can have all the ability in the world to accomplish a task, to be on high, instead of acting that way, they took on the perspective, they took on the attitude, the character, the nature, the form of a servant. Still powerful, still all powerful. It's kind of like in the Roman tradition of holiday tradition of Saturnalia, which many people are mixing with the Christmas holidays that we will be coming up to soon. In the tradition of the Saturnalia, the kings, the wealthy people, take on the form of the slave, but in all the time they're still the wealthy. The slaves take on the role of the rulers and the wealthy, but all the time they are still the slaves. After the celebration is over, everybody goes back to their respective positions, but for that time they take on the same behavior, never though losing who they really are. So Paul wasn't talking about he emptied himself of his power and therefore that excuses this rationale that he didn't know the time while he was on earth. That's how they trick you with this book. They utilize deceptive doctrines like that. They combine this over here in Philippians, which was written three plus decades after the so-called events of Jesus, written by someone who never met this Jesus. They take what they wrote here and connect it over here simply because they want a doctrine. And this is a very popular thing in Christianity and all religions. The people begin to question something. The people begin to say, well, how can they say that he knew all things, but yet here he's saying that he did not know something? Well, Paul said he emptied himself like a servant. And so we're going to interpolate from that is that he gave up his power. It says nothing about him giving up his power. If he truly was God, he could never give up his power. So he can never give up his full knowledge of all things. But because he didn't know, he wasn't God. But they utilize that. They create those kind of doctrines in order to keep the people in line and to keep the people believing in what they're teaching. When if a Christian truly studied the Bible, truly studied how it was, the politics and everything around it, you would come to those realizations and you would walk away from this book, which is why most of us who watch these videos, that's exactly what we have done. But tell me what you guys think. Could Jesus possibly be the God of Yahweh? Could he possibly be the God, but yet not know something that only this God knows? Does their doctrine make sense to you? Are you buying it? Or do you see the grift, the swerve? What do you guys think? So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.